Welcome back. You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. On the program today, we've been focusing on some key issues with regards how companies operate here in Nigeria. On our radar has been the top 100 companies that were recently recognized by the federal government, and so we're looking at some of the issues that analysts have actually raised. I've been having a conversation with two gentlemen, Victor Banjo, the Director General, Institute of Directors, and Dr. Austin Tam-George. He's the Executive Director, Institute of Communication and Corporate Studies. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sticking around. So, Mr. Banjo, before I went on that break, you talked about homegrown initiatives and schemes. It's a very, strong point, because a lot of people are hoping that they too will one day be among the top, maybe top 100, even top 200 companies that will be recognized by the federal government going forward, especially in light of what we are seeing right now on the domestic and global international scene, global financial scene as well. Let's talk about those homegrown initiatives. How can such initiatives be put together to encourage small businesses, for instance, to take a leap of faith and do business in the country?
Thank you. I'm glad you actually mentioned small businesses, because sometimes we actually forget that in some of the, we call it the advanced countries that we like to talk about, 60% of the economy is actually made up of what? Small, medium enterprises, because that has to be basically the foundation of any strong economy, which we actually haven't been able to actually achieve to date. In Nigeria, one of the initiatives we actually talk about is how to stimulate businesses, and also ensure that in doing business, they also do business in a very ethical manner. They do business by understanding that for all stakeholders, they must actually respect their opinion, respect their views, and ensure they are looked after. That is exactly why Audi Nigeria particularly is also basically supporting the Nigerian Stock Exchange initiative on the corporate governance rating system, because we believe that that particular platform, because it has been developed using, it is taking about a year to develop this rating system, would actually be more of actually it's homegrown, and it will also highlight all the key issues. And why do I say to address all the key issues? We need to actually move away from actually just adopting what they call global practices, because we find, you mentioned India, you talk about South Africa, Brazil. A lot of the successes they've actually achieved have actually been based on what I call adopting the hybrid model, which is you look at what works well in certain countries, you now look at your own particular situation and look for how to blend it. Because we call it blended development. So when you actually blend the benchmarks, you look at your particular issues, then you know exactly what are the things you need to put in place. Let's talk about education. We've known for so long that we're not competitive when it comes to education across Africa alone. Because if you don't have that level of competitiveness, how can we actually basically drive and sustain growth? And both have the primary, tertiary level. And that is really why we also need to look at it. Small businesses don't thrive if you actually don't have strong focus on what artisans being trained, vocational training being put in place. We need to actually put more focus on this as well. And that would become what we call a clear measurement for every organization is how much are you doing to support vocational training in many organizations. So our dependence on imported artisans would also reduce, and also to basically improve our competitiveness as well.
Okay, sorry to cut you there, but Dr. Tam-George, please could you respond to this? We got this tweet from Sani Samura. He says, we have firms among the 100 list, but they fail to provide employment and social responsibility to the economy. What is the role of the 100 firms in the drive towards domestic industrialization? Basically, to what we've been talking about.
Yes, I think I hinted at that in the points I've made so far. It's one thing to typologize these companies according to specific criteria, but ultimately the criteria that will matter will be the one that the people consider relevant. So if, for instance, you have a multinational firm that is working in this country and simply pays taxes, that shouldn't surprise us. Actually, that shouldn't impress us, because if you work in the country, there are specific taxes you need to pay, and the fact that you're paying those taxes shouldn't be any particularly exciting point. What should excite us is the kind of employment that they create. In Nigeria, Nigeria, unfortunately, the government is still the largest employer of labor in the formal sector. More than 75% of Nigerians are disaggregated in SMEs and in the informal economy. So what you find is that even the so-called private sector, such as we have in Nigeria, is not the largest employer of labor. So what we found in reality, in fact, is that the people who are employed in all of these private sector blue chip companies tend to employ people, all right, but then they do not even follow, in most cases, they do not even follow the Employment Act. What they do is that they tend to go for as many casual staff as possible. And the tendency is that the workers who work in those kind of circumstances always have this sense of tentativeness. They can't seem to function permanently because they know, they've not been formalized in those structures. So the point I'm making, therefore, is that when we give these kind of awards, we should be careful not to be endorsing the kind of practices that people seem to be aware of. We need to make sure they help to build local capacity. Nigeria has a local content law. The local content law, as far as I see it, will be meaningless if we do not have a corresponding quality of local capacity. Because even when the multinational firms, all of these 100 companies want local participation, if you do not have local capacity, you cannot fill any of those quotas. If they want to divest and they want local organizations to step in, you need capacity to do that. So the point we are making is that we need to make sure that there is massive interest, manifest interest in the way local capacity is cultivated. Banjo here made a very excellent point concerning how these companies also relate with communities. You need social license, he's right, for communities to function. But if you see the kind of joint venture arrangement, for instance, that we have seen in the oil sector, you find that the joint venture arrangement recognizes only multinational firms and the government. But then the communities are the missing link. I think that there needs to be an increased industry and official awareness concerning the very important role that communities must play in terms of making business work.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Tam-George, for sharing your thoughts, and Mr. Banjo as well. Thank you so much for coming on the program this morning. It's been quite interesting. Well, just so we know that we're not taking pot shots at the fact that these companies were actually recognized by the federal government, but we're also trying to highlight the need that these companies should work together very closely with the community. They need to help to build local capacity to ensure that we have more jobs, we have a better working environment, of course, and we have a better economy as well, because in light of the recent developments we see on domestic and the global financial markets as well. But thank you so much for watching today's program, and thank you also to Sani Samura for sending in that tweet. That's today's program. I'm Harriet Agbenyi. Have a good weekend.